I have a son who 2 days ago turned 3 years old. He's a beautiful baby boy named Hendrickson. And Elia was born with a rare genetic disorder that is commonly known as Dravet syndrome. Dravet syndrome comes with a myriad of medical complications, but the one that seems to be in the limelight the most is the intractable seizures. And so with Dravet, intractable seizures can be deadly too. And so it affects each child a little differently. And so this was our surprise wake-up call when we had this boy. Now, I'm going to backtrack a little bit and go back to 2010, long before my son was ever born. In 2010, there was a proposed medical cannabis bill that was brought into the state. And I think at the same time, there was also a smoking ban bill running side by side with it. I remember that I voted in favor of the smoking ban because I had recently quit smoking and was championing that cause. But I remember I voted against the medical cannabis bill because I had the same mindset that I run into with a lot of people, which is, you know, that's just a bunch of stoners that are trying to find a way to get legal pot so they can be high. And so I've heard that from my brother, who's a current police officer in another state. I've heard that from all of my chiefs of police that I worked for when I was a police officer. I've heard that from one of my preachers. I've heard that from a number of people. And it was, like I said, it was the theology I subscribed to. Then all of a sudden I got skin in the game 3 years ago. And as a dad who loves his children, and I have 3 children, so I have 2 older girls that are absolutely beautiful, and they live under the shadow of their 3-year-old brother. Because when his life changed all of our lives, it did it pretty dramatically. And so after the initial shock of finding out that there was something dangerously wrong with our child, then started the process of what do we do to get him help. You know, and that became a long road, but somewhere along that course, we ended up having to switch our treatment to a children's hospital in another state, and because they specialized in this particular disorder, and we didn't have that option here locally. And in doing so, it finally boiled down to what kind of alternative treatments were going to be able to help my son, because the 3 medicines that they had him on were killing his brain, quite literally. The first one was where the neurologist here in Sioux Falls put him on a high dose of phenobarbital to immediately control the seizures when he was first born. That's a common practice. They even do that, you know, in Denver, where we take him now, as a first resort. But the problem with phenobarbital is the long-term use of it causes brain damage. They know that, and so they try and get people off of it when they can. Then he got put on another medicine along with it called topiramate, which is also known as Topamax, which is a neural inhibitor. Well, the problem with that drug is it's one of the main reasons my doctor tells me that he can't walk or talk, aside from that can be a respondent of the Dravet, but it blocks the neurological process that creates speech and motor function. Then he's on a third drug that's kind of a Valium derivative. It's also used as a rescue drug. He went through a process when Dravet kids are about 3 years old, 2.5 to 3 years old, they can go through what's called a neurological regression with Dravet, which means their brains they develop normally up to that point, and then their brain starts to develop backwards. And usually when that happens, if it goes out of control, it causes death, causes seizure death in a child. My son's EEGs were showing signs of neurological regression. So our doctors said, okay, we know that you're trying to cause the smallest amount of damage to your son's brain, whether it be by the medicine or by the seizure control. You've got 2 options, George. You either can increase all of his pharmaceuticals to keep up with the seizure reactions, or you can put him on a ketogenic diet and medical cannabis. And of course, he had to tell me that he can't prescribe medical cannabis because it's their hospital's policy that they don't do that. We're hearing that, we're going to hear that everywhere we go. But he said that he thought my son would respond really well to it because there were some other biological medicines we used that he did respond well to, like high doses of vitamin B6. That worked very well early on. So we've got him on the ketogenic diet, which is a next to impossible thing to do. I mean, we have to measure out every single gram of food that he takes in. We have to measure it against a 3-to-1 ratio of carbs to fat. He can't have any sugars. You drop him out of ketosis, he starts seizing immediately. He has 3 of these meals a day. For us to go to Denver for a 1-day medical visit, it takes 20 meals I have to carry with me. So we ended up having to go to the expense of having a mobile kitchen to go with us whenever we take him to the doctor's office. So it's not a cheap proposition to have a child with Dravet syndrome. So in all this, when he said that, medical cannabis is something that I need to explore, that started, the education process for me. I'm a big investigator. I like to research things, especially things that I think are going to help my son. And the more I started looking into the endocannabinoidal system in the human body and medical cannabis and how it's used internationally, I was amazed at how ignorant, completely dumbfoundedly ignorant I had been back in 2010. That there are huge leaps and bounds in the research and development of using cannabinoids to treat all kinds of different ailments. Most of the research is out of country. The spot that holds the most research is Israel. They've been using it medically since 1970 or a little before that. They're the ones that actually discovered the endocannabinoidal system in your body. They actually have lipids in your body that are made to process cannabinoids for medicine or for nutritional value. Okay. So this was my awakening. This is when I discovered that everything that I'd been told, everything that I'd learned, everything that had been trained into me was completely and utterly wrong. Yes, there are some people that want to use medical marijuana to abuse a system to support a habit. They're also doing that with OxyContin. If you have any children, or if any of you yourself are nurses, you will know that working in a clinic, you're amazed at seeing the list of medications people drive into there on. It's horrifying. Well, so it's in every facet of the medical community. So to just say, that's it, it's just the stoners trying to find a new way of getting high, is once again, is ignorance running amok. It was for me. That's the only reason I can say that. So in doing so, I ended up joining Melissa's team once I found out that this was absolutely, unequivocally the way to go. That this was something that needed to happen. And I had two options in front of me. I pack up my family and I moved to Colorado, where I can get my son this treatment immediately. Or, because he's stable, I hold on a little bit longer and I put forward all that I have to try and bring this to be a reality where I live. Many people have said, well, George, why don't you just move to Colorado? And that's great. As long as that person is willing to find my wife a job, find me a job, buy my house, get me a house there, and support our medical insurance and all of our deductibles in that process. And that'll cost somewhere around $300,000. So anybody who wants me to move to Colorado, I'll make that check out to George Hendrickson. But short of that, that's not an easy proposition to do. People that, we're a working class family, if we were independently wealthy, hey, yeah, I do it overnight. But I can't. I got children in school. So here's our viable option. There are people here that are suffering as bad as my child, some even worse. In fact, a lot even worse. People that can really benefit from a program of a well-regulated medical cannabis program in this state. As we see our other states around us are coming forward with them, we have an opportunity to have a better crafted bill than I've seen in any legislation in the surrounding area. One that even allows reciprocity for people with medical conditions to come to our state if they hold a card elsewhere. And so I'm not going to get into too much detail of that, but that's the problem with all the medicine being in Colorado. If you live in a state like Iowa, and you've got a card in Iowa, but you can't get medicine, if you go to Colorado to get it and bring it back, you run the risk of going to jail the whole way home. So, but I'll let Melissa discuss more about that, but once again, I think I probably used up enough of your time, but I wanted to just say, again, thank you for having us here today and listening to the story of of how I got here.
Could you spell it for the...
Dravet.
Dravet.
It's D-R-A-V-E-T. Dravet syndrome.
Do you have any polls or are there any polls out there to see what feeling is in South Dakota? You're going to have to list it something.
And I know they're going to do a question and answer a little bit later, but there have been some, I believe there was a poll early on done by the Argus leader that showed out of a 300, and I'm just recalling from memory, so please don't hold me to it, but I believe, as I remember, it was around 300 persons polled at 78% approval.
And we're running right about 80, 20, 73. It's really high in South Dakota. And we've come across a lot of people are very supportive. People that we never would have anticipated being supportive are very supportive because they've done research. They've seen
We want to hear you
Oh, sorry.
when you're up front.
Okay. I'll wait.
So anyway, let me introduce Melissa Mentele. She's the head of our organization. She's been the young lady who has spearheaded this whole thing. If anyone has more hours in this than anybody else, it is this young lady. She's taken the time and dedication of spending all her personal money,
As soon as he's done
putting
talking.
together and crafting this bill, while also been lucky enough to get some donations to help her out. But she's really taking this on as a personal drive to help everybody in South Dakota benefit from it. So I welcome Melissa Mentele.